Hello everyone, I am Bradley Sward, Associate Professor of Computer Information Systems at the College of DuPage in Glen Ellen, Illinois. And this video is going to take a look at part 7 in a long-standing series of videos that's going to make a game called Boxxle / Sokoban. We've already done it in GameMaker version Studio 2, so we need to go back to those videos, and we're going to now convert it into C++ and SFML. That's the tools we're going to use. So again, Boxxle is just a game where a person is going to push blocks around or push boxes around in a little environment, trying to get all the boxes to a goal. We're going to work in a 720p resolution environment, and we're using 60 by 60 tiles. And so what is the objective for today? The objective today is to create a room class, a game room class, very similar to what we would have in GameMaker, scene / room / whatever, but we're going to call it room since that's what room is called in GameMaker. And then we're going to update the game class to accommodate for this. And so some of the stuff we're going to do is making room for the next lecture, the next video, which is going to be adding an object class. So we're kind of just setting the skeleton up for in some of these cases, and then we're getting ready for the rest of the stuff forevermore. So I already wrote the code. I'm just going to go through and describe the code to you here. So the first thing I want to do is set up a base SFMLRoom class. And of course, the reason for this is every room in my game is going to have similar behaviors, and there's going to have a ton of behaviors that are not similar. But what we can do is we think about what every room has, when it comes to commonalities, bubble that up into this class. And of course, this is a moving target. Things are going to change as we go. But the idea here is what is common to every room that needs to go, that we need to create in our game. So for right now, you can see here that there's nothing private just yet. There will be in the next video when we set up the object class. But for now, publicly speaking, what do we need? We need a constructor because we're going to need to construct the room and create all the objects and put them in place and set up everything else we need to get going. So that means it's going to be different. It's basically a virtual function in a way because it's every constructor for every derived class is going to be different, but we do need to construct the thing. And then if we're going to construct all of these different objects inside of here, we also need a way to destruct them. So I have a destructor, and notice it's virtual, and whenever I have a virtual destructor, this is basically screaming out, hey, I'm a base class. I know people are going to derive from me. And so because this is a base class, I can think about setting up other virtual functions. And so the step and the draw are virtual here, just a typical, just a plain old boring step function and a draw function. And that ties back into the step and draw events in the main code, in the room code, in the game code, in that main game loop, which is calling the step and the draw over and over and over again, on a frame-by-frame basis. And so everything over here right now is blank, and it will stay blank for this, this video here. Again, next time around we will go and fill this in, and it's not overly challenging or anything. It's just we're just going to set up a vector of game objects, and then we're just going to use for loops and that kind of stuff to do what we need to do, destroy them, and everything else. But again, that's another lecture. So the constructor doesn't do anything because I don't have anything to construct. I don't have a member variable to construct just yet. The destructor isn't going to do anything either because there's nothing newed up. There's no dynamic memory, but there will be. And then the step and the draw don't do anything at all because right now there's nothing for it to do. Okay, so this hub is going to change next time around. And so now this is the base for the initialization room. Let me move this over. So you can see here is my SFML room. And so in GameMaker, or just in a computer system in general, we need our system to load up the initial room. And so there's ways to do this, and I kind of I waffle back and forth over the years between how to do this. This time around, I'm just going to create a room that's part of the framework, part of the engine called the game initialization room. And so notice it is publicly deriving from the SFML room, so that basically all this comes for free. And so now what will be custom is the fact that I have the constructor, because every constructor has to be custom for a derived class. I'm going to overtake the step and the draw events. And then I'm going to also create, so if you haven't, obviously you haven't already, but as I said, we're going to move that shape, that circle shape object that we've been using just as our placeholder. We're finally going to get out of the game class and now move it over into the room class. Next time we're going to move it into the object class, and then once we get the textures going, we can finally kill it outright altogether. It's been a good friend. It's been here for a while, but you know, we're just getting it to where it needs to go and let it go off into the the binary ether here. So I have my constructor, I have my overrides, I moved this shape. Again, we're gonna kill that eventually. So from that, what does the code look like? A lot of comments for now, just to scream out, you know, what do I need to do, you know, where are we gonna go with this thing? So I'll make that a little bigger for you guys now that maybe you can see it better now. So the constructor sets up the shape object, just like the constructor of the game object previously did, and I will show you absolutely all of that, no problem there, because there's a lot of little details that we have to get going here. But that's all I'm doing here ultimately. But ultimately what we're going to do here is once we set up the texture manager and the sprite manager and all that, the resources that we need to allocate for the textures and the sprites and all that, we're going to put that all in here. And then eventually we're going to kill the step event and the draw event inside of the custom room, because once we get the room going, we don't have to worry about it. Just think of GameMaker. You're playing with objects. You're never tinkering with the room once the room sets up, right? Just the way things go. So my shape gets set up. I moved the step event over so you can just show, oh yeah, I got in there, because if it turns yellow, that, you know, it's white by default, but if it turns yellow, that means it got into the step event as it was supposed to. And then the draw draws the thing out. And notice here, since I have a get window function that's in the game, I don't have to pass in a window every single time. Maybe you might want to do that in the future, but we're running out of time. I got 2.5 weeks to get this thing done with you guys, and let's just keep it simple and let's just get it done. So I need to get the game object, which is a singleton, which can get me the window, which is basically a singleton, but it's not really, but it's sitting under the hood. Our window is sitting under the hood, and that window we can say, hey, let's draw the shape to that window. And so, you know, not overly complicated. Everything basically I just stole from the game class. This is, you know, this was in the step event of my game class. This was in the draw event. I just modified it, of course, to make it work, move it over and make it work over here. Okay, so, and then every time we're going to create a new game room, once our framework is a little more solid, you'll see that all we're going to do is to set up a game room is we set up a new class, we derive it from room, we set up just the constructor, and then inside the constructor we will set up object, you know, create. And we'll also be using a tool. We'll create a tool in GameMaker Studio. We'll actually create like a level editor tool, so because we don't have anything where we can visually see the level. We don't have anything like that. We don't have any GUI interfaces or graphic interfaces. So we'll create a level editor, and then we'll actually use the level editor especially for the game levels, to set up all the objects that need to go into the room. But everything else will go away. So it's going to be pretty sweet. I know it's only part 7, and gosh only knows how many parts this is going to be. But this is all there is to it. So one more time here. Here is our base room. Constructor, destructor, step, and draw. Nothing yet. But then, you know, we need all of that so that we can override everything. And so eventually we can make this as powerful as we ever wanted it to be. So, okay, so now how does this tie in to the game class? So what did I do? Okay, like I told you before, I got rid of that circle object, and I killed it from everywhere inside of here. So, yeah, so notice it's no longer here. It's no longer in the constructor. Let's say I'll talk about other stuff later. There's no longer a draw for the shape here. And now, you know, so this current room idea, don't worry about it. Just saying that everything when it comes to that object has been moved over into the game initialization room. So because I could prove it, because I can run my game. Maybe I can. There we go. And I can show you. There it is. So it's working on my end at least. Okay, so I got rid of that. So, okay, so I got rid of that. And so now what I've replaced it with is this idea of a current room. And the current room comes down to here. I put it down at the bottom here. Current room, SFMLRoom pointer, current room. And so I need the include for SFMLRoom. And then I also added I added it here to the constructor. And notice it's a new game initialization room that is the game object, the room object that is going to be the first room that starts this thing up. And eventually we'll put in change room events and stuff like that so we can actually go from room to room, from menu to game and game to menu and whatever else we ever want to do. So I said got rid of this shape and put in this current. And notice everything's in order. Some of you guys have things a little bit reversed. Whatever you see here is in the header is the way it's going to be initialized. Even if you put it in here in a different order, this is the way that the compiler goes through and sets everything up. So I've seen some people lose a day of work because they didn't realize that, and they had two things that were depending on a pointer that was depending on a pointer, and they had it reversed in here versus in here, and like, why does this crash? And I got to feel smart because I was the one who looked at it, and 2 minutes later, the guy took a whole day, and I go, yep, that's what you did wrong. +1 for me that day. Okay, so the constructor is set up. The destructor doesn't change. Process events doesn't change. The draw event does, because now whatever my current room, which is an SFML room, call the draw event. And you got to put it between the clear and the display, because the window will clear, which, you know, obviously blank out everything that was on it before, fresh, clean canvas. And then it'll take everything that's in the room, and right now it's just the shape that's drawing, to that window. And then we have to remember that we have to actually tell the computer, will you draw what's in that memory for, you know, what we have in the memory for that, you know, put that on the screen. Okay, so then now when it comes down to the step event, it's the same thing. Instead of it being one object, some of you had 0, you know, nothing, you know, when I was looking at homework and stuff like that. Some of you had nothing in here yet, but the current room, you need to call the step on that, because every time there's a step, an update to my game, I should call the room, because the room's going to need to update every object in there. So the game calls the room to call all the objects, so it all cascades down, and everybody's happy at the end of the day. Okay, so then what else here? Oh yeah, I have a get current room function. This guy here, this guy here. So it just returns the room, and that's how I can use, if you go back to the game initialization here, that's how I can get into that window. Oh, I'm sorry, no. We'll use this when we get to the object layer. We don't have this just yet. But anyway, eventually we're going to need to get the current room so that we can update it and do things to the room. And so, but just to say, for now, there it is, SFMLRoom pointer get current room, and it just returns current room. Let's see, get instance. Nothing else down below here has changed. The only thing that's left now is the how did I update my run function, like the game itself. What is my main game loop? So guess what? Nothing has been modified. Everything has been modified from the two functions here, the draw function and the step function, because lo and behold, I don't get as much time as I'd love to go ahead and just nail this thing out. Man, this is fun for me. But say the draw and the step event were modified, but the run, there's nothing different in here. Clock hasn't changed, the time hasn't changed, restart, process, call the step, call the draw, call this, call that. Nope. All of this just kind of fits together. It kind of works. It took me about half an hour to get this thing going. But you see, there's my window, there's my yellow. You know, I can put a breakpoint in here. If you want to watch how it works, you go, it's hitting breakpoints, it's hitting the draw, it's hitting the update, it's hitting this and that. And that's because on a frame-by-frame basis, let's just look at it from a frame-by-frame basis here, and I go, every time I hit step and every time I hit draw, right? Well, let's just run this. So what happens? I hit the draw event, I go in, notice, oh, maybe you can't notice because you can't see it, oh, and I can't drag it over. My screen is completely white and blank over here on the right-hand side. So it starts out white. Why wouldn't it let me drag it? Because I'm in a breakpoint? That's horrible. But anyway, so I hit F10, I hit F10 to clear, I draw. So what does that take me? It takes me into the current room. And look at that, right? It takes me there. F11 gets me my instance. I go in, get me my window. It's a lot of work here, right? Now I go, oops, and then the draw is something I don't get access to because there's no disassembly for that. So I go in, I've currently drawn the room, and now I can display. And because I'm in a breakpoint and I pause my program, nothing's really updating. That's the weird part about this, is when you hit a breakpoint, it's hard to debug this system. But now, I can see this. If I still can't move it over. Okay, but anyway, but it is now updated because I've drawn, and now I've drawn the thing to the screen. And so the step event now, same as before here, get me the current room and then put me into the step event. And so again, this will obviously be changed in a little bit of time here, but now you can see on a frame by frame basis, I'm changing the color to yellow. And I could have set it up to be a random color, but I didn't want to bother with that because we're just going to, this shape is serving its purpose. We see it on the screen, that's good enough for now. And so it just repeats over and over and over again. And so there's nothing complex because there's no interactivity to this thing yet. But of course, as over time, as our objects begin to have a little more behavior, and then they can collide with each other, and then they can interact with each other, things are going to step up. But when it comes to this, that's pretty much everything. So I'll just say, you can stop now if you don't want a complete review of everything I've done for one last time, one last discussion. And see you later, guys. So anyway, so again, our room class is a base class. It's inheritance, polymorphism, and all that cool stuff. So the base class has a constructor, virtual destructor. It has the step and the draw because every room is going to update that step, and every room is going to update that draw with its specific objects. And so again, the code is blank over here because we're getting ready for next step. And so this is a general class. This is the base class. So a derived class, something a little more custom, is this game initialization room. And we're going to use this always as the first room in our game. And so again, we'll fix this up. But you see here, I'm going to override the step and the draw for now. I have my own constructor, and that constructor sets up the shape which we moved out of the game class. So we set up the shape, we set the fill color, we draw just to prove we can get in there, and everything's working. And I did prove that. It's hard to see because I have two monitors and yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. But it is working because, again, if I run my game, I hit the breakpoint. Come on. Well, I guess I could just hit this and say draw. I'm hitting both of those breakpoints. So my code is propagating through and it's delegating tasks appropriately, at least for what I'm trying to accomplish. And yes, on my screen, it turned from white to yellow. Just stupid thing. But anyway, okay. So again, my game initialization class is an override. It's a derived class from the base class SFMLRoom. Okay, so then finally, again, one more time, what did I do? I got rid of the shape because we moved it over into this game initialization room. I added a pointer to a current room object. I added a function that we'll use next time around to get the current room. And so I got rid of that, moved that around, and just added that. And so then the constructor needs the pointer. The draw event needs to now draw whatever, the entire current room, clear, draw everything in the room, and then display. And then the step event will go and say, okay, update, and do a step event for every object in my current room. And the cool part was here, the run itself, because of the way we propagated everything else and we architected everything, there is nothing to worry about here. We didn't update that. And here is my get current room function that just returns current room, and nothing else in my code has been modified. So that's a good step 7 there. Thanks for sticking with it, and hope to see you. Step 8 coming soon, how to create an object, a general object class. Take care, everybody.